Before we begin, if stories that reveal hidden truths and challenge injustice resonate with you, take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. It helps more voices rise, more stories get heard, and it keeps you connected as the story unfolds. She never imagined that one phone call could change the course of her life. A brilliant young woman, ignored, underestimated, and judged for the job her mother worked, picked up a ringing phone that wasn't meant for her. But what she heard on the other end wasn't just a mistake. It was a doorway into a world powerful men wanted to keep closed. And when the millionaire realized who had answered, everything shifted. What hidden truth did she accidentally uncover, and why did it terrify the man who thought he controlled everything? Before anything changed, her life was simple, humble, quiet, and always in the shadow of where she came from. She was the daughter of a black maid who spent her days cleaning rooms in houses that never felt welcoming, serving people who barely remembered her name. Yet in that environment, the young woman built her own world through books, long nights of studying, and a mind far sharper than anyone expected. Her mother saw it. She believed in it. But the world around them rarely did. Every morning she walked through the mansion's back entrance, helping her mother where she could before heading to her small scholarship classes. She moved silently and respectfully, never wanting to create trouble in a place where the rules were unspoken but always understood. The millionaire who owned the estate barely acknowledged her existence. To him, she was just part of the background, someone meant to stay unnoticed. But she noticed everything. The hurried footsteps in the hallways, the tension in her mother's eyes when certain guests arrived, the quiet conversations that stopped the moment she walked into a room. She didn't know what they meant, not yet, but she sensed there were things happening in that house that didn't match its polished image. Despite this, she pushed forward with her dreams, unaware that fate was already aligning something far bigger than her. Something that would test everything she believed about fairness and opportunity. Something that would pull her into the world of those who never expected someone like her to understand their secrets. And all it would take to trigger it was a single phone call she was never meant to answer. The phone had never been meant for her hands. It sat on the polished desk of the millionaire who ruled the estate, an object she usually avoided, a symbol of a world she was conditioned not to touch. But that morning was different. Her mother had stepped out to handle an urgent task, the staff was scattered, and the hallway felt strangely silent. When the phone rang, sharp and insistent, it echoed through the room like it was calling specifically for her. She hesitated, but something pushed her to answer. And the moment she did, everything she thought she understood tilted. There was a voice on the other end, stern, hurried, speaking in Dutch. She didn't know the language, not entirely, but she recognized enough words from her studies to sense the urgency. Financial numbers. Dates. Locations. Mentions of transfers that seemed nothing like ordinary business. A tone that suggested secrecy, pressure, and consequences. She froze, trying to grasp the pieces. And then the call ended abruptly, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than before. She placed the phone back exactly where it had been, her heart pounding, unsure if what she heard mattered, or if imagining it would be safer than acknowledging it. But she wasn't imagining anything. Not when she saw the way the millionaire stormed into the room minutes later, his expression sharp, scanning everything as if searching for a violation. Not when he looked at the phone, then at her, with a suspicion so cold it made her spine tighten. She tried to slip away, but she could feel his gaze on her back, analyzing, calculating, and judging. That was when things began to shift. Tasks around the mansion changed. She noticed how the staff looked at her differently, as if they had been told something without words. Her mother grew unusually quiet and careful, watching the doors as though danger might walk through at any moment. The air in the house thickened with unspoken tension, and she was caught in the center of it without understanding why. Days passed, but the feeling didn't fade. Instead, it grew stronger, especially when unfamiliar guests started arriving. Men who spoke in low, guarded tones and carried folders they never left unattended. She saw them linger near the office where the call had been routed. She noticed their eyes following her, studying her like she was a problem they needed to solve. She tried to stay invisible, but the house no longer allowed it. Something had shifted the moment she picked up that call, and now the walls seemed to whisper that she had crossed a threshold no one wanted her near. And then one afternoon, she found her mother in the kitchen, shoulders tense, hands trembling over a sink of dishes. It wasn't like her. It wasn't like anything she had ever seen. Something had frightened her deeply, something connected to that phone call and the people who had suddenly begun to frequent the estate. Before she could ask anything, the sound of hurried footsteps filled the hallway. Sharp, purposeful, coming straight toward her. If you're still here, stay with this moment. Stories like this reveal the reality many try to hide. Drop a comment if you've ever felt overlooked or underestimated. Your voice adds power to stories like hers. And keep watching, because what happens next changes everything. Whatever she had accidentally stepped into was no longer just suspicion. Now, it was coming for her. The footsteps stopped behind her, and before she could react, two men stepped into the kitchen. Their posture alone told her everything. This wasn't a conversation, it was a confrontation. The millionaire followed them in, his expression unreadable but his eyes sharp with a certainty that made her chest tighten. She felt her mother shift beside her, instinctively moving a step closer, as if shielding her from something neither of them understood yet fully sensed. In that moment, the truth cracked open. The documents she had seen carried through the halls. The hushed conversations. The Dutch words she barely recognized. It wasn't business, it was something far more dangerous, something that connected money, influence, and transactions that were never meant to be publicly known. And the idea that she had heard even a fraction of it was enough to turn her from an invisible background to an immediate threat. The millionaire stepped forward, not with anger but with the calm certainty of a man who believed he owned every life under his roof. His gaze moved between her and her mother, as though weighing their worth, their silence, and their obedience. She felt the history of every unspoken rule pressing down on her, the rules that said people like her should remain quiet, grateful, and unseen. He motioned toward the office, and the men closed in around her. Her mother tried to intervene, but one of them raised a hand, stopping her with a gesture that carried decades of inequality in a single movement. The young woman felt her heart hammering, not from guilt, but from the cruel understanding that her intelligence, her curiosity, had become a danger in a world that didn't believe she deserved to possess either. They escorted her down the hallway, the walls closing in with each step. Every moment grew heavier, each footstep echoing like a countdown. She didn't know what waited for her in that office, but she knew one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever they planned to do next would change everything. And the question that lingered in her mind was the one they feared the most. Would she stay silent, or would the truth finally be heard? They brought her into the office, but what happened next was not the punishment they expected. As they pressed her with silent threats, intimidation disguised as authority, she realized something they didn't. Fear no longer controlled her. The same intelligence they tried to shame her for became the thing that protected her. She understood every detail she had overheard, every shadowed transaction, and every unspoken rule meant to keep people like her silent. And she made a choice. Instead of shrinking, she stepped into her own strength. She reported what she knew, carefully, quietly, through channels they didn't expect someone like her to understand. And when the investigation finally reached the mansion, the walls that once made her feel small became the backdrop of a truth too big to bury. The men who believed themselves untouchable were forced to answer for what they had tried to hide. Her mother watched with equal parts fear and pride, knowing that her daughter had broken a barrier generations before her were taught not to approach. The young woman didn't seek revenge. She sought dignity. She sought safety. She sought the right to exist without being treated as invisible or replaceable. The incident changed her, but it also revealed a larger reality, one that countless families still face. The belief that some lives matter less, some voices should stay quiet, and some truths should never be spoken. Her story was not an isolated moment. It was a reflection of the world many still navigate every day. And as her courage exposed the truth, a new question rose, not just for her, but for all of us. How many more brilliant voices are being silenced simply because of where they come from? And when will the world finally start listening? If this story moved you, let your voice join hers. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters. Like the video so more people hear stories that are often ignored. And if you want more powerful narratives like this one, make sure to subscribe and stay with us. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them the most.